as a kid, you want to be Olympic champion. Everyone does, but I think when you then have that light bulb moment of like, well, actually, like, why not me? I could contend with the boys when I was younger. It just gave me that hunger to learn how to win. Our 1500 final was messy, but it's kind of like you cross the line. It's like, okay, like that didn't go how I wanted it to, but at the same time, you can't change it now. So you just look at it, you reflect on it, you learn from it. It's a very, very unique dynamic, and I think it's not for everybody, but I think we do it very well.
Jessica Hull, welcome to the Stella podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You started running competitively when you were just 8 years old. When was the first time, do you have a memory of when you first got a sense that you ran a little faster than the other kids?
I think it goes back to really early days, like from little athletics. I started when I was 8, as you said, on a Friday night and just competing with the boys in the 700-meter pack start and kind of coming second to a young boy at Avian Park Little Athletics Club and being like, well, I want to go back next week and try and win. So I think just sort of there where I could contend with the boys when I was younger, it just gave me that hunger to learn how to win and learn how to fight for every position in a race. And it just hooked me.
As it became apparent that this was very much the makings of a career as an elite athlete, future world champion, silver medalist, what was the cost of that in terms of those teenage milestones? Were there things that you missed out on?
I don't really look back and think I missed out on anything in terms of the rite of passage. I think it was an interesting dynamic in that even when I was a junior, dad was my coach and he was my dad too. So there was a balancing act through high school, but I think we both handled it so well, and I think our relationship is strong today because of that. And then I sort of headed over to college and had different coaches over a few years after that, where each of them have just been different parts of my formative years, and I think through that you learn to explore who you are and figure out the world. So that then kind of when I moved back home and it was settling back into life here, I never sort of look back and think, oh, I missed out on this or I missed out on that. It was never a sacrifice to me. It was kind of decisions were made that made sense towards like the goals I was trying to achieve. So um yeah, I don't think that I missed out on anything in the rite of passage. And I guess nowadays too, like the rite of passages is so different for teenagers and things that yeah, for where I was in life and for how much I was enjoying my running and my athletics, I think the biggest differences I guess I probably had was that you have your school friends and you have your running friends. And that was kind of a unique bubble to have two bubbles of friends. And I think now I sort of look the like-mindedness of your running friends, they're kind of the friendships that have survived the longest. And that's kind of the people that you lean on the most today because there was just so much relatability across everything we were doing from school to running to trying to be the best we could be.
As you mentioned there, your father, Simon himself, a former national level middle distance runner, coached you early in what would become your career and is your current coach. I'm sure you get asked a lot by people in your own extended family and social circle, and then when you're talking to journalists like me, how do the two of you navigate those two incredibly formative, critical relationships in your life, that of a father and daughter, and that as elite athlete and coach?
Yeah, it's a very, very unique dynamic, and I think it's not for everybody, but I think we do it very well. I'd say the coach-athlete relationship is really collaborative, which is also unique. There's not as much direction from one side. It's because there is a lot of open dialogue from the coach and athlete piece. I think it allows us to kind of switch between coach and athlete, dad and daughter a little better because there is that encouraged dialogue. There's a lot of colloquial jokes that we have between each other that I just think it's really unique to our dynamic. It would I think it could be different if it was more of if dad's coaching style was a little bit more of direct and this is how we're doing things. But because his coaching style is quite open, he listens to my opinion, he asks questions, he gets feedback very often in both directions. And I think it kind of just enables us to switch a little easier from when we're on the track and he's coach, and then when we're in life and he's dad. But to be fair, he's always dad to me. And I think that also makes me a better athlete because I can be vulnerable, I can be open with him, I can share my fears, I can share my goals. And then he puts on the coaching hat, but there's also that added purpose in that he's my dad that wants to see his daughter achieve her dreams. So I'd imagine there's a bit more pressure on dad's end than mine, if anything, because it's not just as a coach, how do I help her perform at her best? It's at the end of the day, it's my goals and my dreams that he's also assisting. So I think it might be a little harder for him than it is for me.
Well, when you have a moment where you break a record, you win a medal, one of those, what certainly seems from the outside, what would be some of the ultimate goals? Who is more elated, do you think? Is it you or is it him?
I mean, I think if I look back at Paris Olympics, the elation for both of us was just like undescribable. I think for me, I knew where he was in the stadium, and you luckily when you win a medal at the Olympics, you get to take a victory lap with the flag, and he was about 150 meters to go, and it almost made me want to rush that first half of the victory lap because I just wanted to share it with him because I knew if there's anyone else in the world that knows how much it means and how I'm feeling right now, it's my dad. So it kind of, in those moments, it's like very sweet to be able to share the highs. And then I think there's other times where it's like we both feel the lows because we're in the trenches together every day at training. And I think as again, it's a very unique thing is that like he knows what I'm feeling without me even having to tell him. So I think there's a lot of those things where when it's going really well, he's the first person I want to share it with, and then if we have a tough day, he's the person that understands it the most. So
Well, let's stay on that silver medal a little bit in Paris, Jessica, because for people that don't know, that was a historic win. You became the first Australian woman to win an Olympic medal in that event, which was the women's 1500. How did that moment feel at the time and as you're sitting here reflecting on it in 2026?
yeah, I think the satisfaction of it grows and grows and grows. It's kind of it's hard to describe that it wasn't just that day. It kind of my appreciation for that moment and the weeks that went into it, the years that went into it, but especially those last few weeks where it became apparent to me like hey this is actually really possible and that belief piece that then had to catch up with like the physical level of fitness I'd got myself into. I think I grow in appreciation for the athlete that I was on that day that executed and came away with the silver medal because replicating that has been extremely hard over the last few years and it's a feeling I'm chasing well, daily at training, but also like every time I race and line up, I think I put together the perfect day in that Paris final. And as an athlete, you're chasing that race plan, that race pattern every time you line up now because you've seen the snippet of what it can look like when it all comes together. So yeah, I think my appreciation as an athlete for an athlete that executed it on the hardest day with the most pressure grows and grows with time, and it never gets old. It's never lost on me. I think that I get to do this as my job, and having an Olympic silver medal is a big piece that I've been searching for a long time. But it has certainly driven a goal towards winning a gold, which I think as a kid you want to be Olympic champion. Everyone does, but I think when you then have that light bulb moment of like, well, actually, like, why not me? As an adult with the understanding of how hard that is to do, is a little bit different. So yeah, I'm definitely searching for that next step. But the silver has fueled a dream bigger than I could have imagined as a kid.
I imagine as we're speaking that you are deep in the mindset and, of course, the training regime that us mere mortals could probably not even get our heads around for the Commonwealth Games being
Yeah.
held in Glasgow this year. One of the insights I think our team had, Jessica, was the fact that you're on set with Stella, believe tomorrow after you and I speak for the photo shoot. And that was, you had to find a track near the shooting location because you're traveling interstate. I mean, that level of detail to a layperson thinks, gosh, you can't even one day, couldn't even go
Yeah.
without training. Can I ask you just to expand a little bit about the mindset and the absolute down to the minute discipline being required of you at the moment?
Yeah, I think every day is pretty structured around what we need to do for training, and the training schedule matches the race pattern, so it just becomes non-negotiable. Then it's like, okay, that's a track day, that's an easy day, this is a recovery day. It just follows the same pattern that my body's used to getting ready for races. So at the moment, it's a little tricky in New South Wales because it's a good problem to have in that there are so many school carnivals from primary school, high school, that every track is booked out from pretty much 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day for all of their carnivals. And it's pretty cool to watch, like up here at my local track in Newcastle, as the kids are just getting out there, loving what they're doing. And then if they happen to overlap with a few of us as we're coming in for afternoon training, they get so excited. So it's really cool to just see the grassroots of the sport in its most pure form, but it does make it a bit of a logistical challenge for the elites that are preparing for some big overseas competitions this year, just having to jig some training times around when we can actually get on a track.
You mentioned before how winning silver in Paris has really ignited, if it needed further ignition, that hunger for Olympic gold. It'll be LA in 2028. How do you, I suppose, balance? Preparation for something like Com Games this year and then LA in 2 years. Do you become tunnel vision on what's literally before you? And or is it something that you and your dad, your coach, are able to compete those priorities alongside one another?
There's an interesting balance. I think as you get deeper into the Olympic cycle, it becomes more about getting it right in LA. Whereas like kind of 2025 and 2026 for us this year were a lot more about developing our 800, which has typically been my weakness in the past. So that bottom end speed and working on the 1500 from that lower volume end. And then as we kind of near the end of this year, I know I have some big endurance blocks coming, which are challenging for me. That's definitely I've probably turned my original weakness, which was my speed, into a strength. And then that aerobic side is where I can make the next big jump. So I think if you asked Dad this the day after the Paris Olympic final, he probably had a plan for the whole 4 years. And then I'm slowly kind of getting the pieces of it as to like, or we'll do a sequence of training and I can kind of like read his mind of it. And I'm like, oh, I see where you were going with this and why we did that. And I can see long term what you were thinking. So I think in his mind, when he's writing the training, everything is with LA in mind. But as the athlete, it's like I'm focused on each race as it comes or each championship as it comes and just trying to keep building my repertoire of racecraft and different skill sets to employ on the world stage. Because it's one thing to even do it domestically sometimes, but to then have the confidence to do it against the best in the world is sometimes a hard skill to translate. So I think just each race I learn something from it and try and think about how it can help me going forward with LA as the big picture in mind.
A lot of people are describing the time that we're living in as a golden era for
Mhm.
Australian athletics. What's your observation on that, Jessica, and how does it feel to be, coming into these peak years and the stratosphere globally and coming to attention of your fellow Australians in this apparent golden era?
Yeah, I think a golden era is a really good way to describe it. I think if you just look at Paris as our landmark, kind of as a benchmark for our athletics team, is we won 7 medals and we won them across a range of disciplines. So you had Nina in the pole vault, you had Matt Denny in the discus, you had our walkers, you had myself on the track, and then you had our high jump girls. And it's our range of medals are coming from everywhere in that like athletics is truly represented on a very well on the international stage from the Australians right now. And I think that just encourages that next generation as well, in that like we can compete across a range of disciplines. And then we've sort of seen the rise of Gout Gout and Lockie Kennedy, and whether there's a rivalry there or not, both of them are putting sprinting on the map in Australia. And it's really cool for all of us because we also feel that too. Like if you go back to the Australian Championships in the 5,000 was we were right before Gout Gout's 200-meter final, and the crowd at the Aussie Champs on a Sunday afternoon in Sydney was largely thanks to Gout being there competing. But then by being there and competing, then they've witnessed the high jump girls go at it with Eleanor and Nicola also jumping that afternoon. And they've been around for the 5K and they've watched athletes that maybe they weren't exposed to, but Gout got them through the gates and they were there. So I think kind of having just that new eyes on the sport as well, while we're also having quite a lot of success internationally, and the excitement that having such a range of athletes brings, it just kind of builds that sport and builds a platform of athletics in Australia and gives us a good launching pad into LA and a home Olympics in 2032, which will roll around before we know it.
I wanted to ask about um, the, whether you think Australians really even understand the playing field to even get to compete at that level in athletics. Jane Fleming recently said, making even a final in an athletics event is the equivalent of winning a medal in
Mhm.
swimming. What's your assessment of that, Jessica?
Yeah, I think in a way, athletics is truly one of the only global sports. Like every nation can do athletics. There's not really any barriers to entry. There's over 270 countries potentially that participated in Tokyo. It truly is a global sport, which it probably does suggest that Jane's on the money with that. But in saying that too, our swimmers have been absolutely incredible at setting the bar and setting the tone for our teams at the Commonwealth Games and at the Olympics in the past like few Olympic cycles. It's going to be really interesting in LA because athletics comes first. So we are potentially going to feel a bit of that pressure that swimming normally has to set the tone for the Australian team. And then the flip side of that is that the reality of athletics is like we can all probably only do one event, or maybe two, but one event is likely. So that's kind of our medal tally will be slightly lower, even if it is really impressive for athletics. We could surpass our 7 medals in Paris, but it does mean that swimming are potentially going to be chasing on the medal tally, which is a different pressure for them. But it's a different pressure for us kind of coming first and just setting that tone for the Australian team.
I find it really interesting what you're talking about, that pressure. I think that's really well explained what you've spoken about. But there's also, I think, for people in the media and people cheering along at home, the attention conversation and the education piece, that's why I wanted to reflect a little bit on the fact that you literally made history in Paris with your win. And it'd be nice, I think, that the attention people like yourself and Gout and Lockie Kennedy are bringing to the sport, that will see a lot of attention on track and field at the upcoming Com Games and then in LA 2 years after that. And not just on the pool, because sometimes our obsession with the pool can be disproportionate when we've got all this success having outside of the pool.
Yeah, I think the two can complement each other. It's like success breeds success. So, when the swimming program goes first and they're winning medals in every event and every relay, there is a buzz amongst the Australian team in the village as well of like, okay, like it's our turn now. And then it does send you out there with a bit more fire in the belly. And then similarly, I hope that they kind of use it as like, well, we're going to inspire the rest of the team to come out here and deliver too. So I think that the swimming and the athletics can complement each other, but at the same time, there are individual moments amongst both programs that deserve to be elevated if they are historical moments in the sport.
I wanted to ask you, Jessica, a little bit about the business side of the sport because it is obviously, of course, a business. Do you see an equity and equality in terms of elite female athletes and elite male athletes? Because it has always been in the past that it can be easier for men to secure those really big lucrative sponsorships, and we know that the pay gap exists in all sectors. What's your view on this as a hugely successful female athlete?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think it's in athletics, well, a lot of our contracts are under non-disclosure agreements, so there's not a lot of transparency between your what your male peers and what your female peers are earning. But I think amongst us, the chatter seems to be that it's if it's not even, it's very, very close from a contractual standpoint. But in terms of athletics, our prize money has always been 50-50, kind of what a male 100-meter runner wins at the World Championships, a female 1,500-meter that runner that wins can also earn that. So I do think that in terms of prize money, we are a sport that is kind of unique in that it's always been very even. And then contracts are just element to that, and endorsements as well. It depends on kind of what's having a moment in the endorsement world is kind of who do people want to pull on for different advertisements or for different ambassadorships. I think it sort of ebbs and flows in both directions. So yeah, I think for now there's a lot of opportunity in the sport, and then the extended media space for men and women in track and field.
I think another conversation, certainly one I've had on the Stella podcast with some of the Australian swimmers, whether they're like retired swimmers or, well, I was going to say Ariane Titmus, but of course she is now retired. So there you go. She ticks both boxes. Everyone's story is different, but sometimes about the focus on appearance for all women in the spotlight. What about for you, Jessica, as a young woman? Is that something that you've become conscious of? Is it something that you're comfortable with? And do you think that double standard is slowly improving?
With it. Like, if you look at the track space, there's a lot of glamour on the track these days. I mean, the first example everyone will be familiar with is Sha'Carri Richardson, from the hair to the nails, the eyelashes, to just even the pieces of uniform she chooses to race in. I think there is a lot of opportunity to lean into the glamorous side of track and field. I've heard Ariane speak a few times about how like when she's swimming, but it's the outside of the pool stuff that gives her the opportunity to express herself and to choose different outfits and to choose the makeup and the hair. And I think we are quite lucky when we run in that we can express ourselves how we like to. And it does, I just kind of built it into part of my race day routine. And it helps make me feel ready to go and ready to be excited and get out there. It's like kind of getting ready for if you're going out on the town for a night kind of thing. It's just like, yeah, from the makeup to the hair, and you just feel like you're putting on your like ready to go to war kind of like feeling. So it just makes me feel more prepared. And when we're traveling around the world as well, it's just it's part of the process to find a nail salon or things like that. It just kind of keeps you at ease and just having fun.
I love the line about getting ready for war. It really puts the war into war paint, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's just a fun way to keep it light when the nerves are really starting to set in.
I wanted to ask a little bit about your dad again. You've said in the past that your dad sort of instilled you with a no limitations, why not you mindset.
Mm.
And I wanted to ask you about that motivation and that sense of drive alongside the pressure that mindset also brings with it. How do you manage, and is that, I assume, been part of what you have learnt to perfect over the course of your career to this point?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting time to have this discussion because I think pressure is something that I'm really learning how to deal with. I think internal pressure is the strongest of all. Like I want to live up to my own expectations of myself and the own standards I set for myself in training every day. Like I want to see the racing line up to that. So I'm probably the one that places the most pressure on myself. But I'm also in the process of just kind of learning how to debunk that pressure actually isn't a real thing, and that there is two sides to the coin. And just working with my sports psychologist on that, there's actually no, your brain can't feel two things at once. So if you feel like stressed and anxious, you can't feel relaxed and composed. So it's kind of that element of just relieving that stress and anxiousness that comes with performance sometimes. And it's natural for that to come with the big moments and the high pressure situations. And especially when it means a lot to you. I think the more it means to me is often the time where it feels the heaviest. So kind of just learning how to meet that with, okay, I've done everything I can now. Like this is the fun part, and it's time to be relaxed and just get out there and enjoy it. But it's I think been the hardest thing since winning the silver medal is to then now learn how to deal with the expectation that rolls with that. But I'm sort of very slowly starting to learn how to just navigate it and like fighten it in a way. And sometimes when you've still got things to work on, whether it's physically on the track or mentally around your performance, it just kind of drives you to keep going until you kind of get to that point of being like, oh, you know what? Like I can actually handle this now. Like a month ago, this was a lot more than feels like now. So just sort of seeing those little bits of progress in myself, and seeing that mental space catch up with the physical ability is really fun. And I think it's momentum in a different way too.
Outside of competing and competition and race day, are there situations where you're feeling that mentality trickle down? So, if you're going for, I don't know, like a driver's license, or you have to give a speech somewhere and all the usual toolkit where we have to go, okay, how am I going to not let the pressure get on top of me? Has that proved to be a portable skill?
Absolutely. I think when you go to like I get the chance to go to schools and talk and and to be a presentations, but when you stand in front of a room full of students and their parents and their teachers, like that feels like nothing compared to standing on an Olympic start line in front of 70,000 people plus the world viewing at home. It's a lot. It makes everything feel a bit smaller. And I think there's sort of even just when I talk to my family and my friends and like moments that feel very stressful in their lives in the corporate world or something, it's like different levels of reality that it brings me back to. I'm like, okay, I literally just get to run in circles for a living and I work really hard at it, but like the only person that it really impacts is myself. And whereas like people make bigger decisions on a daily basis in their jobs that have a big trickle down. So I think it's proved poignant in different parts of my life, but I'm not lost on the fact that there are other situations in the world that are a lot harder when it comes down to dealing with pressure and translating performance on the big stage. Yeah.
I guess similar on that conversation is then the fortitude that you have built and are still, I'm sure, continuing to build in navigating disappointment and when things don't go your way. And when you were talking earlier about your dad, and I was asking, who's happier when there's an amazing moment, and then likewise when something doesn't go as hoped and as planned. For you as an individual, and then for you and your dad, what skills have you learned to manage when things don't go as you would have hoped?
Yeah, I think it's similar to just building that resilience piece is that everything you go through, you can grow through if you look for it. And I think there's like the recent Australian Championships, like our 1500 final was messy, but it's kind of like you cross the line. It's like, okay, like that didn't go how I wanted it to, but at the same time, you can't change it now. So you just look at it, you reflect on it, you learn from it, but at the same time, you have to move on, or you're just carrying around like this feeling that you're trying to suppress, but it's going to catch you next time there's a heightened moment. So it's kind of like you have to just learn to move on, to let it go. I think talking about it with people that understand it a lot is really helpful. So that's like my family, they kind of feel every wave that I feel because they're so connected to what we're doing. So I think sometimes we can express to each other with the most clarity as to what's actually going through the mind or like how I'm actually feeling when I'm trying to process something. So I just lean on my people and the people that understand me, and I think that's the most important thing. There can be a lot of noise sometimes and a lot of opinions, but I think at the same time, the older I get, the more aware and self-aware I get. It's like who I need to actually listen to and who I need to let in. And I think, yeah, in elite sport, I think most athletes would say is that their bubble that have an impact on their mood and on their feelings and stuff is quite small. But then there's also the wider layer that helps build the profile of the sport. So it's just learning to balance everything. And yeah, like you said earlier, the resilience piece. If you go through something hard, you're going to come out a bit stronger if you've looked at it the right way. So yeah, I try to always be pretty positive, and I'm lucky I've got quite a positive internal dialogue. So I think even when it's hard, I'm often always just trying to be like, well, I can learn this from it and I can take this away. And next time I line up, it could look like this instead. So yeah, it's only a failure or a setback if you kind of just let it leave you back where it pulled you, rather than letting you launch forward with it from a different angle.
I think it's a really interesting insight there too, Jessica, when you talk about blocking out the white noise and listening to what's important to you. We've spoken about the profile of the sport exploding, your profile exploding, and then with that does then bring people having an opinion, knowing if something's happening good or bad, everyone's going to be chatting about it. That's a lot for anyone to withstand, especially someone like a young woman who's still navigating, adjusting to life in the spotlight.
Yeah, I think it's when you sort of put it like that, it is important to kind of strip it back and be like, well, I'm just one piece of this sport, and a little bit of attention on our event or attention on a moment in my sporting career, it does bring eyes to athletics and the wider athletics community. And I think in turn, that's a really good thing, is like it is a sport that's profile growing massively, kind of even by the month at the moment with performances. So, it's like as the athlete, you need to know what you need to zone in and zone out of to perform. But I think everything in its place has a role in kind of just elevating the platform of athletics. But I do also think that I I get stronger at each year, kind of just knowing how to zone things out and things like that. But younger athlete, when I was a lot younger, it was a lot harder to do that. So I think it's one of them things that you just kind of have to go through it to learn how to navigate it.
I thought also listening to you talking about that resilience and coming back from disappointments and setbacks, there's also a speed component to it. I mean, the Com Games are fast approaching, and then it's LA, and there's going to be other championships in between all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the quicker you can get back into it after a setback, it just kind of accelerates that whole process of just kind of getting over it, kind of actually making sense of it, and just reflecting enough to then move on. I think for me, a big thing that I had at Australian Champs was I had the chance to race again basically 24 hours later or 48 hours later in the 5K. And I recognized I needed a bit more space from the Friday night. So I took a day on the Saturday. But by Saturday afternoon, I was very confident. I was like, okay, my next race is the 16th of May. I don't want to sit on this for another month. Like, I'm going to get back out there on Sunday. I'm going to move on. And then that way I can just kind of focus on what's to come in the rest of the year rather than dwell on it. And I think there is always another start line in athletics. And even could be a metaphor in life as well. There's always another thing coming. So it's just kind of like sometimes you need to put a hard deadline on yourself. And for me, that was a chance, that was the Sunday for the 5K. And then just move on and take away what I needed to from that 24, 48 hours. But it's the similar thing too when you have good moments. Like if I look back at the World Indoors that preceded our national champs, is like I made a mistake in the 3K final with 300 to go, and I was lining up in the 1500 final the next night. And it's kind of like there's another race. I got a bronze medal. I'm very happy with the bronze from the 3000, but I had another race the next night and I didn't want to make the same mistake again. So as much as you're carrying a high from that, you're still carrying a learning experience into the next day. So I think it's just remembering there's always something more coming. And yeah, it's just moments like that that just make you look forward to what's coming even more.
You and your husband Daniel, we often see him trackside supporting you. How does that fit in with day to day domestic life? I mean, are you operating at different ends of the day in terms of early starts? Can't go out for dinner tonight. I'm not doing this. How do you navigate that in terms of just diet and lifestyle when you're living with someone?
Yeah, it would be funny to just sort of even reflect on how this has evolved since like we first started dating 10 years ago. Is He was definitely so green to the athletics world, but now I don't even have to like say things. Like he just knows kind of what's coming and he knows the flow, he knows the rhythm. I'm very lucky that sort of since the Paris Olympics, he's full time with me by my side. So he works remotely a little bit for his company. We're doing some recruiting, but he was hands on in the mines as a diesel mechanic, which was very much not a remote role. Like you have to physically be on the heavy machinery that you're working on. So he's sort of made some changes in his life that allows us to travel together. It's a unique point in our lives where we have a lot of very fun experiences across the world chasing my dream. But I think even now it's a shared dream. Like I think we're so intertwined in what we're trying to do, and having him by my side completely elevates like what is possible for me from every angle, from like just a logistical standpoint, but also from like little things that he'll say through the day that I just kind of catch myself if I was having a moment of doubt, and he'll just squash it and build it back up. I think it's so important to have someone by your side that just understands what you're trying to do, but he's also very naturally morphed into the role that he plays in my, not just my life, but in my athletics career. So I think it's also a unique partnership. And I always tell him now, I'm like, I don't know what I would do if you had to go back onto a mine site. I'd be pretty hopeless. I've gotten so used to having him with me all the time. So yeah, he plays a huge role in supporting the daily training, but also just in the general chasing and pursuit of my dreams. Is yeah, there's nothing that I could never do anything really that just sort of distracts from that dream because he's so fully on board with what I'm doing too, that our decisions are just so directed at that. And it's been very cool to just see that evolution in him too, is take ownership as much as I have. So yeah, it's very special.
How do the two of you factor in just a little bit of time off into your lifestyle right now?
Yeah, I think we are lucky that we get to travel a lot for this, and I race all over the world. And I think everywhere we go, we do get a chance to see something, even if it's just a restaurant or like a attraction in a certain city. It's like we do try and make an effort to also remember to sort of pinch ourselves that, oh, we're racing in Rome this weekend, or like, and take it in a little bit. I think we joke, we get a good feel for the cities that we're in, and that when I'm wrapped up and retired is like, would we come back here on a holiday? And the holiday list is getting longer and longer and longer, that's for sure. But at the same time, I think we both look forward to October, where that's my downtime each year. So things are pretty lighthearted. We get to be a bit more flexible. We get to go away. We get to spend a bit more time with extended family that aren't always based around where we are. So I think it's just like we've learned to sort of really appreciate the little things, and they feel like the holidays and the breaks from what we're doing. Even if it's like attending a wedding, sometimes just feels like so nice because it's like all of our people in one place again. And we've got a couple of weddings to look forward to at the end of this year, where it's just like it's a really fun experience across the weekend to catch up with everyone. And we're always very thankful to the couple getting married, that they've bring everyone together and we've got to see everyone in the same place again. So yeah, I think it just makes you appreciate the smaller things. But I think post career will there'll be a big world trip kind of coming up with the ability to do a lot of things that we haven't done outside of the racing that we've had so far.
Well, that was probably my final question. It's always crazy asking a 29-year-old young woman that's at the top of her game. So let's talk retirement and what comes next. But it is, of course, the reality of being an elite athlete, and the fact that, Jessica, you've even mentioned it a couple of times in that answer there, means that it
Yeah.
clearly is something weighing on your mind.
I can't run forever. I'm not silly. I know that I'll always be a lifelong runner, but I know I can't do this at an elite level forever. Definitely having a home Olympics in 2032 is a big carrot. Like that's if you sort of said before Brisbane was announced, would I even anticipate beyond 2028? Like probably would have said no, but there's been a lot of things that have changed in that time too, from the shoe technology to recovery, nutrition, knowledge is just so much better now that we're sort of seeing, especially even in the 1500, we're seeing women and men sort of be able to stay on the track a little bit longer. Physically, their bodies are holding up better because of all these advancements in technology and the education around things. And it's sort of becoming a bit more about like, okay, if you physically can handle this now and your mind is still fresh and excited, like there's not really a hard end point, as there used to sort of be, like for women especially, like by 32 you were kind of transitioning out of the sport. And that's kind of, I'm going to be 31 in LA, and it's like, but the opportunity of Brisbane doesn't seem so far-fetched now, just with kind of what I'm watching some of my peers do as well. Fellow Australian Lyndon Hall, she's an Olympic cycle ahead of me in my career, but she's running personal best every time she lights up the track in Europe now. So, I think I've got great examples that sort of suggest that if my mind is fresh and excited, that Brisbane's definitely possible. And then beyond that, it would just be like, how much more do I want to handle? So um, I'm hoping that I've got another Olympic cycle post LA, and then beyond that, we'll just take it as it comes. But yeah, I don't think I could ever be an athlete that has a hard end date. Like I think I'll know, but I don't want to put a timeline on it.
Thank you so much for freeing up some time from your very, very genuinely busy schedule, and all the best, of course, in Glasgow and LA, but in the millions of moments that we don't necessarily see as a country that are happening in between those as well.
Thank you. Thanks for the conversation today. It was really fun.
Thank you.